one, the Bulls made this. So they traded Otto Porter, Wendell Carter, a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick for Al-Farouq Aminu, and then the main guy, Nikola Vucevic. We're going to start with you, Noel. What are your initial thoughts on this trade? We can go from the Bulls angle first.
Yeah, so, I love everything about the trade. One of my favorites has got to be just Vucci Mane, the man himself.
Great name.
But also, I am going to miss the man Otto Porter. He was pretty knocked down this season from his shots. But Wendell Carter, he's a young guy. He's got potential. He could be better. But this season, he was atrocious. It was tough for me as a Bulls fan to watch the Bulls and how little he's improved from last year, and just not having any sort of a force down low to go against other teams' bigs. We'd get abused night in, night out, and having Vooch is just going to do us so much wonders and take so much pressure off Levine. So those are my initial thoughts, but what did you guys make of the trade?
Vish?
Yeah, I think the Bulls have a legit big two to make a playoff push. I think Zach LaVine has kind of been a lone star. I feel like there's a lot of really good young players on the Bulls that we've kind of thought are talented for a couple years. Like, I know Kobe White finished the season strong last year, and people were super excited, and that really hasn't materialized, where he has some good games, he's really inconsistent and a little inefficient. Lauri Markkanen has teased with offensive potential his entire time in the NBA, but injuries and lack of consistency once again has held him back. Now the Bulls have two legitimate number one scoring options. Big Vooch and Zach LaVine are probably the two most underrated offensive players in the NBA, because I don't think people have realized how both their games have evolved. They're both terrific shooters from three. Zach LaVine is shooting 43.7% from three, and Big Vooch is shooting 40.6% from three. That's pretty ridiculous. I think that the Bulls are going to make the playoffs because they got Big Vooch, and I think that they have two legitimate all-stars.
Okay, interesting. So I'm with you on, just a huge addition. I felt like this also came just, out of nowhere. This wasn't really on the radar for anyone, and it just happened, and it was the first big thing. So that was just exciting as a Bulls fan. What I think was the best part about this trade for the Bulls is what they gave up. So Otto Porter, he's been inconsistent with injuries. Pretty solid player though all around, maybe a little overpaid, you could say. Wendell Carter, I'm with Noel on this one. I liked him coming into the draft. I never thought he'd be insane, but I thought he'd be a pretty good average center. He just has not looked the part. He really hasn't. Whether it was Tony Bradley not missing a shot against him, Jokic, any big or even somewhat talented offensive center is giving him trouble, and he's not aggressive on offense. It's an issue. And then the two first, right? So this year's first will probably be at the very best for the Magic. It'll be a low-end lottery pick. And then in 2023, I still think our team's going to be good, and we'll probably be making the playoffs then. So, the first-round picks, we're not really going to be missing those too much. I do have a little concern with the future for the Bulls in the sense that, do they plan on just having this as their big two? Because I don't know if this is enough to go deep, Eastern Conference Finals and play championship game into the postseason in the future, if these are the only two big stars they have. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, I could jump in. I would say I definitely agree with it, and I think it's going to have to be when you're looking at, because we have the talent now to be in the dance in the playoffs, but in terms of beating the contender teams, definitely could come up short. So it comes down to the three guys who have the most potential to be that third guy or to be an elite, just star, borderline, just very great player in the league, and that's Markkanen, that's Kobe White, and that's Pat Williams. And I think each has kind of shown flashes. I would say Markkanen's been pretty inconsistent, but he still does show flashes, and I think one of those guys is really going to have to step up. And I think having guys though on the team like Vooch and the man Thaddeus Johnson, Thaddeus Young, and veterans to kind of show those kind of guys how to take the game to the next level could help a lot. But I think it's going to have to be among one of those three. What are your thoughts though, Vish?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be those three. I do think, like you said, the Bulls have kind of a defined ceiling, and it's nothing against them, but there's only top 10 players in the NBA, and typically to go to an Eastern Conference Finals or Western Conference Finals, you need one of those top 10 guys. And I love Zach LaVine. I love Big Vooch. I would say both of them are outside of the top 10 when it comes to the top 10 players in the NBA. And the other thing with the Bulls is that the one thing they're going to have to do is, because I think scoring is not going to be a problem. Like Lauri Markkanen still averages 18 points a game, even though he's not become a legitimate second option next to Zach LaVine. Like Pat Williams is 10 points a game. Kobe White's averaging 15 points a game. So they're able to score the basketball. They even get 10 a game from Satoransky. Their problem is, I think the question is, can they play defense? And Big Vooch isn't the greatest of defenders. He's a solid one, an average one. Zach LaVine sometimes can be a little lackadaisical while playing defense. Kobe White can be inconsistent. I think that's where Pat Williams is really going to have to be that guy, because he's the guy that's got the traits to be not just a good defender. He can be an above average one and possibly an all NBA type one. But ultimately, if you look at the East, right, I think we agree that Philly has two elite franchise cornerstone type players. I think Milwaukee has one. Boston has kind of fallen off, though they have two kind of pretty special wings. And that's where I say, like, there is opportunity. Like, Miami's good. Miami's not great. There is opportunity here for the Bulls, but not this year because they've started off poorly, but the next year with Big Vooch, Zach LaVine, a more developed Pat Williams, maybe Kobe White starts to get more consistent, and Lauri Markkanen stays as he is. There is opportunity for the Bulls to really, really try and be a top 4 or 5 team in the East. I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then any more thoughts on their ceiling, Nolan?
One thing I would say that is an interesting just factor is Vish was mentioned the defense. He also mentioned the Celtics, who there was some trade that happened with them.
Yeah, that's next.
Originally, after Shendonov Wendell, we were going to have Mo Wagner, who we got in a trade with the Wizards, going to us. But we traded him pretty quickly, it seemed like, for Daniel Theis, who Daniel Theis seems to be kind of a hit or miss guy when I bring up in most conversations. But I like the guy a lot. I think he's undersized, yes, but he's just a defensive anchor for a team that, as Vish said, can put the ball in the hoop, but does need guys to step up on the defensive end. So I don't know how much more he elevates the Bulls' ceiling, but I do think having more defensive presence, and even Al-Farouq Aminu is not a bad defender. I think having more defensive presence is going to be the factor on how high the Bulls' ceiling will be.
I agree with that. And I actually have a question for both of you. And before I ask that question, I will just elaborate just a little bit on Theis. I think Theis has been an underrated player for Boston. He's improved his shooting where he is capable of shooting the occasional three-point shot. He can make a 15 to 18-footer. He's a solid free throw shooter. He plays really hard. He's a good screen setter. I think he would be exactly what the doctor ordered for the Bulls coming off the bench, because he'll bring energy too. So between Lauri Markkanen and Nikola Vucevic, the Bulls will be doing something interesting where they'll be starting a real power forward and a real center. Not many teams in the NBA typically do that now. What would have been a small forward 15 years ago starts as your power forward. Well, between Lauri Markkanen and Nikola Vucevic shoots 40% from three. Lauri Markkanen shoots 39% from three. Is this the greatest shooting front court of all time?
You say it all time Bulls or all time?
In general, I don't think we've ever seen two 7-footers shoot this well from three and play on the same team next to each other.
No, it's definitely a great point. I think the stats could make a case. They are the best or in the conversation. I don't know the stats and others. I would say maybe Paul Millsap's are Jokic and Millsap maybe a better 3-point shooting, but I would say they're in the conversation for sure. Both of them have straps. Blake, what are your thoughts?
All time would be pretty rich in my eyes. I would have to sit down and investigate it more. Like off the top of my head, I feel like there's been lineups in the NBA where maybe they do go a little smaller and they just, have a small forward at power forward that can shoot the lights out. But for a pure center and power forward, in the NBA right now, it's very modern where you can have all 5 guys outside of the 3-point line and run sets or run ISO that way, which is really interesting. But yeah, I don't know about best all time. I'd have to look into that more, to be honest, but it's an interesting thought nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be the best. It's going to be, I think all time always sounds a little scary to hear because you're trying to think through the years and years of history. But unfortunately, you're not going to find many shooting. I mean, up to post like pre 2014-15, you're not going to find a big man combination where both the center and the power forward take 7 threes a game and shoot about 40% from three. Like that was guard stuff prior to then. So that's one thing. The point you brought up about Jokic and Millsap is interesting. The thing with the two of them is that while Jokic shoots 42% and Millsap shoots 38%, they don't take the attempts. Like Vucevic shoots 7 a game and Lauri Markkanen shoots 7 a game. On the other hand, Millsap shoots like 2 and Jokic shoots 3.5. Yeah. So I actually think this is going to be crazy to watch because the Bulls spacing, typically when you start a power forward and a center, right? It's especially in today's NBA, people are thinking both the blocks are occupied and your spacing is going to be a little less than adequate. I mean, think about the 17 Thunder, the year Russell Westbrook won an MVP. They were starting a rookie Domantas Sabonis and Steven Adams, which felt like alien even at that point in the league. Yeah. So their spacing is going to be interesting because they'll have all 5 players playing on the perimeter when in their starting lineup, and they're starting with size 2 7-footers.
No, that's interesting. And then real quick before we hop off this, how far do you guys think, or what seed do you think the Bulls can get by the end of the season? Right now, they're a little bit out of the playoffs. Maybe they can make the play-in, but do you guys think they could get up to like a 6 or 7 seed in the East?
I would say it's definitely possible. I think there's definitely room enough in the season, and if this is one of those things, there's an instant click where Vooch just kind of fits in and play style works. I think they definitely could go on some mini runs. I mean, this is a team that's like been in so many games, they just can't close out games. So I think they're literally right there, and this move is obviously going to put them over the ceiling they used to have, and I think it's going to give them a chance to actually close out games. So I could see them being, I would say 7-6 seed range at top. I don't think they're going to get any lower of a seed than that. But Vish, what are your thoughts?
So right now they're right there for the play-in, right? They're the 10th seed. But the thing in the East is that you have 3 elite teams in the Sixers, the Bucks, and the Nets, right? 3, I would say, teams that have an opportunity to maybe win the ship this year, with the Nets being obviously the favorite. And then you have the Hornets, the Heat, the Knicks, the Hawks, the Celtics, and the Pacers. And the Bulls are basically 3 games out from 4 and 2.5 games out from 5. Now, with the addition of Nikola Vucevic, I genuinely think Boston is a sinking ship right now. Yeah. The Pacers are a solid team, but I don't think much of them is besides a team that's going to be in the play-in. I do think that the Bulls are a better team than the Hawks, though the Hawks have been playing incredible basketball lately. I do think the Bulls are better than the Knicks, though the Knicks just continue to consistently be playing good basketball. And then I think the Bulls can – so I think there is a good chance that the Bulls are anywhere between 6 through 8. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're right there at 6 because honestly for them it's about finding consistency. But in terms of raw talent, the Bulls do have a rotation of 8 like pretty darn talented players on their roster, something we haven't been able to say in a long time.
Much agreed. Awesome. Now,